Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Southern U podcast. My name's Taylor McMurtry, and I'm joined as always by the man, the myth, the AL deer legend, Mr. Matt Brock, Habitat First Properties, and Mr. Jeremy Ferguson, Wildlife Consulting Services / broker for Tutland. Go on, Jeremy. Howdy. And we got a special guest in the house today.
Very special.
Very special.
Mm-hmm. He's special, all right.
Mr. R.L. Foster of Trophy Class Outfitters.
Good morning.
Yeah.
Good morning. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. We're excited. We're going to talk a little bit. You guys know, you may or may not know, what we kind of specialize around here is kind of southern habitat improvement, wildlife education, all that good stuff as it pertains to the Southeast. And we kind of, are more towards the private sector, the landowners, as opposed to public land, where a lot of other podcasts are kind of finding their niche. But we're not necessarily trying to hit that market. We are trying to do stuff with land that people either have long-term leases with or own. And today we're going to kind of go a little bit, I won't say off the rails, but we're going to go out a little bit, and we're going to start talking about hunting with an outfitter. Some of you guys that are listening to this may have had the opportunity to do that. Some of you may be kicking the tires on it, not sure if that's something that you'd want to do, what does it cost, those sorts of things, and how do I pick out a good outfitter, how do I choose that
very carefully.
And some of them are probably going to make fun of us for having to use an outfitter.
Yeah,
but that's
exactly.
fine.
Yep. Fine. You have to pay all that money because you can't kill one on your own.
No. Yep.
Go hunt some public land like a real man.
Yeah.
So that's fine.
We love those comments too.
I've had better success on do-it-yourself hunts than outfitted hunts. Honestly.
Yeah. DIY.
So, shut your mouths.
and I hadn't.
No,
I've been going with the wrong folks.
You have.
No, I've
That's what you get for being a cheapskate.
No, I've had good experiences with most outfitters.
So before we jump in, I just want to say a little bit about RL. RL's a long-time outfitter. How long have you had been outfitting?
Started in 1993 in Illinois.
Okay.
So last year was 30 years.
30 years.
I was 9.
Awesome. That's awesome. So, again, we like to say it around here a lot. It's not that we just pull random people off the streets. These are people that have
been there, done
that, have some real-world experience, and you guys being biologists have the academic background too. But we like to get people in here that know a thing or two. What's the State Farm thing? We've seen we know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two. Yeah, that's the kind of people we like around here.
Yeah.
So,
RL, you have any idea how many? I'm just going to leave it at Pope and Young. How many Pope and Young deer y'all taken through those years?
Well, I didn't for a lot of years, and I had a potential client call me and ask me that very question. And I said, I really don't. He said, don't you think you should? And so I thought about that. First, I was a little offended, like, do you want to buy a hunt or not? But but then I got to talking to some of the guides, and we all got together, and we've always had photos of all the deer we took. And we came up with about 225 that made Pope and Young or better.
Wow.
We've had 18 that were over 170, and about a little over a third of our bucks were 140 or better.
Man.
So we've helped put a lot of deer on the wall.
What's your top scoring deer?
I can't remember, Jeremy. It seemed like that score.
I bet.
2011, I had a guy out of North Alabama up around the Stevenson area took a buck, and I was lucky enough to be guiding him that morning. But he took a net 226. And for those that's listening that are familiar with the scoring system, a lot of your high scoring bucks are non-typical bucks. Mm-hmm. This buck scored 196 typical.
Gosh, that's just
as a 10-point, and then had 30-something inches of non-typical. So he was a man. And then
freak.
That was in 2011. We took a buck last year. I think the gross 196.
191
as a typical. It was a
typical.
Yeah. So
I was lucky enough. For those of you that don't know, RL's is who I do some guiding for and hunting with, and I was lucky enough to be guiding Stephen that hunt, and by far the biggest deer I've back up.
Free range.
By far the biggest free
There
range
we
deer
go.
I've ever put my hands on.
Yeah.
Well, let me
Unbelievable.
Let me backtrack and tell you where that 196 came. The largest whitetail that we ever took in Illinois was a 196 taken by an Albertville guy, Scotty Kelly, and he was an 8x8,
Wow.
and 196.
Oh, I've seen that deer too.
Oh, did you? You see him mounted or
Mounted.
Yeah.
I've seen it. I've seen the mount. It looks like a bull hanging on the wall. It's just
now this will be under the heading of bragging, but over the last 3 years, our bucks have averaged over 150.
yeah. That's
impressive.
Hey,
incredible.
and I'm the one bringing the
bringing
average
it
down,
down.
killing my mid 140s.
yeah, bringing the
Hey,
average down.
no, we'll take those every day.
Yeah, RL's a wealth of knowledge when it comes to this kind of stuff, and so we thought we'd have him on and just kind of ask him some questions about outfitting and about maybe who that's for, who's a good candidate for that, those sort of things, and we're just going to talk outfitting for a little bit, and that's cool. Again, like we always say, nobody is teed up in here. Nobody knows the questions that we're going to
Yep.
ask necessarily.
RL's got no clue what we're
Nope,
coming at
nope.
him with.
So
He asked a few minutes ago, and
Forget it.
he's like,
yeah,
not
well,
gonna-
Matt started to tell him, and then he goes, "No, they don't ever tell us what we get to." So you don't get to know either.
Well, what I don't know, I'll just make up. Will that work?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's how we do it. So this first question right here is pretty simple, and it's kind of to the point, I guess. But if someone's on the fence or considering an outfitter, and booking a hunt with an outfitter, I would imagine most of the time that's an out-of-state, trip for the most part. Why should people do it? Just in a nutshell, what's your kind of top maybe one or two reasons for somebody to take the leap?
Well, I think first and foremost, you need to consider what game animal you're going for. Most guys in the South have had quite a bit of experience with whitetails. So there's no reason that a guy from the South couldn't go to a different area and still effectively hunt whitetails. Now, bull elk are a little different,
That's quite
as are cougar. If you don't own any hounds, you won't be cougar hunting.
no.
So I used to be partners with a guy that we had a booking business called Bow and Arrow Adventures for about 8 years. And so we had 50 or 60 outfitters that we represented that we sold hunts for. And so a lot of the questions we would get was, what areas, what areas produce the best trophies, what kind of cost, what accommodations, all those type of things. But to get back to your question, for whitetail, it's not as critical. If you're hunting an area like we do, that 120 is probably a top end deer for a lot of areas in the state, and you want to shoot something better than the Midwest is an option, as is Texas. The reason I would suggest that if a guy has the time and the know-how, he may not have the need for an outfitter. A lot of my clients have the know-how, they just don't have the time. And by the time you think about locating good ground, leasing good ground, preparing that ground to hunt in some way, you may have 3 or 4 trips tied up in this before hunting season even gets there. And unless you're lucky enough to have that amount of time, an outfitter that's already secured prime ground, already has key locations located, what management that's been done has already been done, and you just show up and hunt, it's invaluable.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, I'm not advocating for either one, but I know a lot of people like to get up in arms about like booking an outfitter with someone with a high fence, those sort of things. I'm of the mindset, just like you said, there's a time and a place for, this person who just does not have the time. Hey, like I've got the know-how, I know what to do, but I don't have time, man. And I don't, I'm extremely limited in my outings, for the year.
You'll almost see the differences in the guys going on outfitted hunts versus high fence operation hunts. Is the guys that's going on these high fences, instead of having 5 to 7 days to burn, they may have 48 hours to burn. And they're like, you know what? By gosh, I want to kill something.
Yep.
And there's options out there for
is. Yeah, and it's not, I think a lot of times you can't post a trophy photo of
Oh,
something,
you're going to get roasted.
You're going to get killed for it, and it's like, well, you don't know that guy's story either.
That's
You
right.
know, like if you don't know what this guy's dealing with, or what his limitations are, and why can't you just be happy for the guy?
Yeah, when I get my deer heads finally hanging on the wall instead of laying in the floor, we'll do a little tour of them, and you'll see one of mine's got ear tags in. Yeah, I shot him in high fence, and you can make fun all you want.
It's got an incredible story, though.
It does.
The deer has.
But it was a big high fence too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was.
It wasn't a killing pen.
No, it's 4,500 acres, I think.
Yeah.
Deer was known age. He was, he would have been, the next season he would have been 15 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I think it's important to remember that
crazy.
every hunt's not for everybody.
that's
That's
right.
exactly right.
You've got to determine what your goals are and what you're looking for. And there's outfitters out there that can meet your goals.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, and I kind of we sort of got into this one here. This second question here: who's the best candidate for an outfitted hunt? I know just because I know you personally, I've heard you talk about some hunters. Like, hey, look, I know that you are eager to do this, and you've got the financial resources to make it happen, that kind of stuff. But you've also offered advice to people to go, hey, listen, I think this may be a little too big of a jump
Premature.
right now. Like, let's get some just, you need to go somewhere and get some deer under your belt before you come up here and do this, whatever. So if you could just maybe talk about what's the best candidate for someone to something like that.
I can give you a real world example of a guy that contacted me that had hunted with Judd Cooney in Iowa. Which Judd Cooney, I don't know, I'm dating myself. He's an old school outfitter and an outdoor rider, and he had a dynamite place in Iowa. But he had hunted with Buffalo. He'd hunted with them. Can't remember the name of that operation in Iowa. He'd also hunted with Buffalo County Outfitters. Tom Indrabro, one of the pioneers of big deer and outfitters in Wisconsin. He'd hunted with both those guys, and those are not cheap hunts. He'd never killed a deer. He'd never killed a buck. And he called me, and he told me what he'd spent, and he just I gave him the advice. I said, you really need to get you in a hunting club. He lived in Florida. Mm-hmm. I said, you need to get in a club where you can shoot does, where you maybe can shoot hogs. And I've always said that, there's no way that you have enough close encounters with a trophy buck to practice shooting trophy bucks. Mm-hmm. It's just so rare that you get that opportunity with a mature buck that Major League Baseball players all still have batting practice for a reason.
That's right.
You need to shoot those. There's just so many things that come into consideration. Shot angles, when to draw your bow, all those things that it's too late to learn that when you've got a 5.5-year-old mature buck out there that's trying to pick you out. Get back to your question. The guys that hunt with us normally fall into primarily two categories. We've got the guy that is a very good hunter. I've got some clients that are outstanding bow hunters. They've got good jobs. They make the kind of money that they can afford to go on a hunt, but they don't have any time. Mm-hmm. They can't invest. They've got a week or two that they can invest in their hunting season. And then you've got the guys that are fairly inexperienced. Maybe they've killed a few deer, but they're wanting to have a chance to shoot something better than what they have in their home. Mm-hmm. And so, it can be costly. Mm-hmm. I mean, a whitetail hunt's going to cost you anywhere in the ballpark from, on the cheap end, $25,000 to $3,000 up to $5,000 or $6,000, depending on where you're located and trophy quality. That's another thing a person needs to consider. Are you going to be happy with a 125, 130 inch Pope and Young type deer? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of options open to you, a lot of areas you can go and hunt that deer. Now, once you say, and most guys do, I'm looking for a 150 or nothing, well, you might get nothing.
Yeah. A lot of times you're going to get nothing.
Yeah, a lot of times you're going to get nothing. As a matter of fact, I've been real quick to tell guys that call me, my guides have always accused me of talking more people out of a hunt than I talk into a hunt, especially when we work shows. But to be realistic, you're going to eat some tags if you're chasing trophy deer. You're just gonna eat some tags. I don't care how good your outfitter is. I don't care how good the ground you're hunting is. It just doesn't matter. Big mature whitetail is gonna pull your drawers down sometimes.
To put that in perspective, what's your dead deer success rate, roughly, on average?
Deer versus dead number of hunters.
Yeah, dead deer.
We average year in, year out over 40%.
Yeah.
We have been over 50%, but 40% is year in, year out average.
What would you feel like the average is for most operations? Are they about that, or that seems a little high to me?
Well, I'm glad. From the outfitters I know, and I know quite a few, if you're below 20, you don't advertise it and you don't talk about it. 30 to 40 is strong.
Okay.
30 to 40 with a bow.
Yeah.
With a bow.
Right.
30 to 40% strong. We've had some years that we've been over 50%, but those are rare and few and far between. So what you're alluding to, Jeremy, is a good point to bring up, is when you tell a guy, and this is just pretty basic stuff here, but when you tell a guy that we have a 40% success rate, what you didn't tell him that 60% of my guys go on without one.
Yeah.
Well, and just like you were saying, there's no way to practice for a big buck. There's just the encounters are so rare.
Yep.
Okay, a 40% dead deer rate does not mean a 40% shot opportunity.
No.
That's
shot
right.
opportunity is much higher.
Yeah.
Or can be much higher. And these guys just make a mistake, miss, wound, whatever. And I mean, it happens. Those things happen, and
They do.
And that has absolutely nothing to do with your outfitter.
Well, that's the
You know what I
nightmare
mean?
a guide has. That's the nightmares that a guide has, and I think about it, and Jeremy does too, from the guiding he's done. But there's a lot of leg work. There just is. There's a lot of leg work that goes into it. Besides, when a guy shows up in camp and he's hunting the next morning, we've been out there for days and days and cut shooting lanes and discussed, wind direction and background cover and all the many things that come into picking the right tree. And it hurts when you put a guy in there and you know that there's some good deer in the area and you give him all the advice you can give him and he botches it. Now, hey, listen, I've bow hunted a lot of years, and I've missed my share, probably more than my share. But you need to try to do your best, do your best.
The hunter needs to be prepared.
Yeah,
There's been a lot of effort and a lot of time put into.
And that goes back to one, understanding what you're doing, when to take the shot, when to draw. But there is a lot that takes place in 2 seconds after you hit the release. You need to, as a hunter, you need to know where you hit that deer and which direction he went and how he acted when he left. Last year, the deer I shot, I mean, it sounded on video like I absolutely thumped him. But I knew that I knew where I hit the deer. I was like, no, we're not going anywhere near that deer today. And I shot him, through a dadgum kidney. But the deer was within, I think we tracked him 500 yards or so with a dog, and he laid down on the edge of the creek and died in his first bed. So that's what you want. You want them to die in their first bed. If they don't, you're going to struggle.
Trouble.
But you need to know what to be watching when you're in the stand.
And that only comes like Ariel was
experience,
like that guy that needed to join a club in Florida and just shoot deer.
Yep.
And that's what I always recommend people. I, as bad as I hate to say this, I can't stand talking to people that have killed 2 or 3 deer and then they're just waiting on a 140 or 150. I'm like, go kill some doggone deer.
Hey, man.
Because you get life experience, hunting experience, like you said, when to draw, how to draw, what are the deer doing, how are they behaving. You don't learn that unless you're pulling that bow back and releasing an arrow.
And let me tell you, I'm going to down some hunters right here. I'm going to just step all over you Western guys. If you can draw back on a mature doe in Alabama around a oak tree, you can kill anything in this country.
Anything.
Yep.
Anything.
I know. I've got.
They walk around They walk around picking up acorns with their hooves and sticking them in their mouth.
right.
Around
Looking
here.
it's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
But I talked to y'all about my RLI class that I've been in the last few days. The guy that sat behind me was an outfitter from Colorado, and I was talking to him, just asking him questions, and we were showing pictures, yada yada yada. And I said, "What is the one problem you have with hunters?" Because I bet 40-50% of the hunters that he was showing me were Alabama guys, not to mention all the Georgia, Mississippi, Florida guys, but tons of Alabama guys that have hunted with this guy. And he said, my number one problem is he used his language. He said, is you damn deer hunters. He said, you don't draw early enough. Mm-hmm. He said, on elk, you draw or you're going to get hung.
Yeah.
He said, if you have to let down, let down.
Right, but draw.
I can stop him with a call or he may blow out. But if you don't draw, you're hung. Mm-hmm. He said that's the number one problem.
I know his number two is not being in mountain shape.
Yeah.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
You go out west and hunt. It's an eye-opening experience.
Yeah.
I mean, you think you're – I remember one particular hunt I was preparing for, 1991. I was hunting Idaho and talked to my outfitter, and I said, man, I have been walking a stair-stepper. Man, I have been working. How many hours I've been, that I have been staying on the stair-stepper getting ready. He said, you better get off that stair-stepper and find you some steep ground. And I said, really? He said, nothing's going to prepare you for this like getting in the woods. Mm-hmm. So I started going to the state park and putting a pack on my back. Thank the Lord I did that. Mm-hmm. And it still almost died.
It's still hard.
It's straight up and down. It's straight up and down in some of those areas. I mean, there's areas, honestly, and I'm not joking. This is not mean to be in jest. There are areas out there that an outfitter will say, we're gonna hunt this drainage, and you'll think, well, how are we going to get down there? Mm-hmm. Can't walk it. Oh, yeah, we'll side hill it. You walk on the side of your foot. You're not walking down with your feet. Your toes pointed downhill. You're walking the side. And when you're looking at the area you don't think that you can walk down, imagine an elk quarter on your back.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So our old buddy out there now is going to have a learning curve.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah. I know.
He's going to come back skinny.
Or tough.
Yeah.
I've got a friend, that is relatively new to, especially to bow hunting. I mean, and to his credit, man, he has killed some good deer. He has held out and held out and held out, and I've been in his ear this whole time going, man, kill a doe, man. Especially with a bow, like you need to kill a few and understand how this works on a live animal. Mm-hmm. And he just, I'm just gonna hold out for a buck. And now he's not killed one with a bow yet, but he has held out with a rifle and has killed some really good deer. But I'm like, man, there's just no substitute for playing the entire game. Mm-hmm. With archery, especially, or with bow hunting, you can do everything right and it still doesn't work. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, mm-hmm. You can have the wind in your favor and you can draw at the right time, and you can, like, all of these things can come together, and the deer just steps behind a tree and then turns and walks directly away from you or something. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. There can just be one little thing that happens, and I'm like you said, there's just not enough encounters where you get to really practice. Mm-hmm. Shooting at a 3D target is great, but it's not a live animal.
No,
it does not have a pulse.
Mm-hmm.
It can't react to sound. It can't react to sight. It can't smell you if the wind changes.
And you don't react to a target like you do a live animal.
That's exactly right. You don't have adrenaline pumping through you when you're shooting a 3D target.
Yeah,
so.
you don't look like a dog trying to crap a beach. seed.
Yeah,
just shaking.
Trying to keep it together. I know. So I know you already touched on cost, so we can kind of go through that one there. But I guess we were already kind of leading into this, but what can a person do to prepare for one of these hunts? And I know it depends on the animal, it depends on the terrain, location, that sort of stuff. But let's just say for you, somebody books a hunt with Trophy Class Outfitters, and maybe they've never been on an outfitted hunt before. what's your advice to that person? Like, this is what you need to be doing before you get here to give yourself the best chance to be successful.
Right. First and foremost, if you're several years out and you've not done some killing, it's back to our conversation about shooting some does.
Right.
Shooting the deer you do have, or the hogs that you have, or whatever you have. But other than that, spending some time with your bow. Muscle memory is so important. There's a myriad of 1,000 different things that you consciously or unconsciously do every time you draw a bow. And it needs to be autopilot. You need to be the point. I hear people say, for years and years when I first started bow hunting, I heard people talk about, they'd even write on their bow, pick a spot, reminding themselves to pick a spot. If you have to do a mental checklist of, okay, am I at full draw? Am I at my anchor point? You're already behind the 8 ball.
Exactly.
It's got to be automatic, and the only way it becomes automatic is to shoot your bow and shoot your bow and shoot your bow to win. To now you're in a position when that deer walks in, all you're worrying about is a shot opportunity. And there's things that you can learn at an archery range. I used to shoot quite a bit of 3D, and it's excellent to make you a better archer. But that's not like shooting from 20 foot up a tree either. So the things that I would say primary is to spend a lot of time, be comfortable with your bow. Confidence is so important. If you feel confident that you can make a 35-yard shot, there's no reason you can't hunt whitetail anywhere that whitetail are found. There's so much talk about, how far did you kill one? I get sick of hearing it.
Oh, absolutely.
I killed one at 55. Well,
Why don't you be a bow hunter and get close?
Yeah, exactly. And so just spending time with your bow and
Taylor
having
just
confidence
slapped
in your
people in the
equipment.
He did. Way to go, Tay-Tay. You
What
probably
is-
just lost some viewers.
I mean, I'm sorry. Like, look, I've killed one at 60 on the nose. It's there have been 2 shots, and nobody ever believes me when I tell them this. I've taken 2 shots at animals in my lifetime beyond 30 yards. 2.
Good for you. Good for you.
That's good.
Now, they both worked out, but I'm just saying, like, I will practice at those distances. I'll make sure that whatever my equipment's capable of and whatever I'm capable of is there. But I don't go out into the woods hoping, boy, I hope one steps out here at 65. Like, no.
When it's a completely different world, as Jeremy was talking about earlier, when you go out west.
You got to be prepared for some of those long ranges.
I really had I had the opportunity 2 years ago to hunt mule deer in Colorado, and I came back with a newfound understanding of shooting at distance. And and I've hunted quite a bit out west and have determined that, as opposed to me going out there with the mindset that I need to be prepared for the occasional 50-yard shot, I need to go out there expecting a 50 or 60-yard shot, because that's just the real world of the animals and the place you're hunting.
Right.
But with whitetails,
Exactly.
it's a short game. When you get in the woods in the southeast, I'll say, well, anywhere, but if you get in the woods, particularly in the southeast, especially early season, take your rangefinder and spot 40 yards. It looks like a football field.
It does.
How am I going to get air? And then it gets late in the afternoon. You don't see all those little vines and all those little sticks and stuff that'll affect your arrow.
And I'll tell you something too that's different that people don't think about, and I really didn't until just trying to figure out exactly what was happening. And that practicing at long range is what brought it out. 30, 40 yards, you're probably not worried about it. But especially guys with movable sights, dialable sights, man, you got to true those things.
Absolutely.
You can't just take for granted that the sight tape that it's telling you is going to fit your setup perfect. I was trying to figure out what was going on with one of mine 2 years ago. And, man, it just didn't add up at 80 yards. I'm like, what in the world? But I'm shooting good. And I had to end up swapping a tape, and it just didn't match perfect. Somebody that just took for granted that that's what that was, and like, I'm ready now. I hadn't practiced any, but I'm ready. I can shoot that far.
It's kind of like bore sight in a gun.
Yeah. Yeah, bore sight and go hunt
Very
with it.
similar. It's very
Yeah.
similar to bore sight and a gun.
If it gets you on the paper, it's done all it's supposed to do.
I want to hit a pie plate.
Yeah.
I hear that, and I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Oh my gosh,
I know.
that drives me
with a
nuts.
rifle. Now, if you,
drives
can
me
hit
nuts.
if you can hit a pie plate at 40 or 50 yards every shot with a bow, okay.
Yeah.
But if you're shooting at a pie plate with a rifle,
I
ooh.
know. Well, that would be my only thing to say too is, like whether I'm successful or not, I promise y'all, like y'all know how much I obsess over my bow stuff, but my equipment is right.
Yeah.
Like when I get in the woods, it is not. There's not going to be some kind of failure on my equipment's part. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? This thing is going to be right, or I'm not taking it. You know what I mean?
You're trying to control the factors that you can control.
Yes,
That's right.
yes.
And that's all you can do.
And don't change, and I'm just saying an input, don't change your setup. Don't change an input in that system without checking it. I've seen people
Well, I put a lighted knock in.
Yeah,
Shot it. Like,
yeah.
No.
Or
Yeah.
I was shooting rage at home, but I know these deer up here are bigger, and I'm going to shoot this 2-blade single bevel. I'm like, have you shot it? No, it's good. No, it's not.
It's not. It's not good.
Let me give you a real world example that comes to my mind of that. I was on a bear hunt in Alberta, and I had this guy who's from South Florida, and I was watching him shoot his bow. He had the little blazer vanes, and he had on some type of broadhead. Good gosh, it looked like a spear point.
Like old Magnus Stinger or
Yeah,
something.
yeah, it was bigger than that.
Oh,
I can't
Lord.
remember the name of it, but it
Like Taylor shoots.
Steel Force.
I killed.
It was a Steel
I
Force.
killed the crap out of him with a Magnus, man.
But anyway, he's out there shooting, and I'm watching him, and you can see those little blazers are just not getting it done for that broadhead, and this thing's giving that every time. And I'm watching him. I said, "Is your bow shooting pretty good for you?" And he said, "Nah, it looks like it's moving a little." I said, "Yeah, I noticed that." And I said, "You got your tackle box with you?" And he did. And we switched to I can't remember, some little small 3-blade. Might have been like something that G5 makes.
Montec or
Montec.
Striker.
Striker. I said, well, let's try that with those blazer vanes, and he flew like a dart.
Yeah.
He killed a 400-inch bear, a 400-pound bear the next day. Not just because of that, but his arrows were. But he just was, go hunt with it because he was there.
No, the only other thing I would say, mentality-wise, as far as when we've talked equipment and practice and all that kind of stuff, there's something that my dad told me like years ago, and I've just never forgot about it. And I think every time that I have an opportunity, it goes through my head. Because I don't get me wrong, I have a lot of respect for whatever animals I'm trying to harvest. I want to make excellent shots every time, but Dad has always told me like, to keep yourself from the adrenaline and the nerves kind of getting the best of you, whatever, you need to get mad. And what he was talking about, and he goes on to like explain, I have spent too much time. I have worked too hard. I've spent too much money in gas. I've paid too much money. If this is an outfitted hunt, like I have prepared, I've done everything I can. You're going home in the back of my truck. Like, you know what I mean? There is no way that you're getting away from me. And like, get a little bit angry with it. You know what I mean?
Eye of the tiger.
I've always said that 90% of success is attitude.
Yes.
And I'm always of the opinion that every time I go to the woods, I'm going to kill a deer.
Well, that happens to you.
But it's attitude. It's attitude, Jeremy.
Manifest it, Jeremy.
You don't even have to go to the woods. You shoot them off the porch.
I can. But
Speaking into existence.
you got to have that positive attitude, and like he said, muscle memory and all. If you've got a positive attitude and you know your equipment, then when a deer comes out, you're not going to miss that first opportunity. And that's what if I had anything to add to this, draw your bow at your first opportunity if you're bow
Yes.
hunting, because if you're waiting on the perfect opportunity,
Might not
it's not
come.
going to happen. So be
never see
familiar
it.
with your equipment, be familiar with the vitals on the deer, be familiar with how they're going to behave, react. Take advantage of the first opportunity that you have.
That's right. I agree.
That is within your effective range.
Because if you don't ever come to full draw, you're probably never going to get a shot.
That's a fact.
Not with a bow. You won't.
Nope. And if you see a lane coming up, deer's coming in, draw before it gets there. Don't wait till it steps its little beady eyes out into the lane and is looking around. you be at full draw so that when it steps out, bam, there's your shot.
There again, these are the kind of things that you only learn by doing them.
That's right.
Exactly. You have to
Times at
hunt
bat.
and kill deer.
That's right. Ariel, what about like a nightmare scenario for you? Like in terms of like you're an outfitter, you've got X number of hunters, coming up here. What makes an otherwise really enjoyable experience one miserable?
Attitude. Attitude. A guy that comes up there that already knows it all and doesn't want to listen, is not teachable. One of the things I've learned in the outfitting business is that most of the people that we have are in leadership positions. Most of our clients are managers, or a lot of our clients are managers. They're used to giving orders but not taking them. And, we don't have all the answers, and we're not experts, and we learn from every year we're learning more and more about deer, but we know the property. We know where deer have been killed. We put forth our best effort to do the best job we can. And if you don't know those things, you probably pay you to listen. But when a guy gets in camp and is willing to learn, willing to listen, we can do a lot with him. But the guy that seems to already have all the answers and then sometimes you have a guy have a negative attitude, just a bad apple. I won't go into details, but I've crossed paths with some guys like that, and one bad apple, you've heard the expression, will ruin the whole bunch. I try to cull those apples if I can.
For sure.
I remember a couple.
But you just, this is a little hard for me to say because I used to be so serious about my wife. I'm not as serious about it as I used to be, but it's supposed to be fun.
Absolutely.
It's supposed to be fun, and sometimes people put so much pressure on themselves to take that buck that I think they put themselves out of the game because they're so stressed out that they've got to do that. No, you don't have to. You're not feeding your family with these deer. It's supposed to be enjoyable. And we try to entice the guys to kind of relax a little bit, let this be fun, enjoy. Hunt hard, and hunt as hard as you want to, and we're there to help you do that. But at the end of the day, this is not a life or death struggle that you're faced with.
No, and I feel like that's a real thing too. You go somewhere like that, and you go, okay, I got so much money invested in this.
Yeah.
I got to make it happen. And it's like, man.
Ease up and enjoy yourself.
Yes, like a real good friend of mine was able to, in his first attempt, by the way, his first application drew a either 6 archery tag for Kentucky for elk.
Oh,
yes.
wow.
That's when you borrowed my backpack, wasn't it?
Yes, that's right. And so when we went up there for that, it was, a lot of other factors again, like your guy was telling you, dang deer hunters, like we're up there trying to figure out how to hunt elk because, we hadn't done that. And there were a lot of different things that made that trip hard, like that, we're trying to learn how to hunt a new animal. And we had an emergency patch or a plug kit for your tires. If you happen to get a hole in your tire, you can plug it. And we ran out of plugs on that trip. We plugged his tire so many times. Had to go back to town and get another kit just to be safe, whatever. Because something about that rocky shale kind of coal mine country, just popping his tires like crazy, and then dealing with other outfitters on public land. They had a run in, and that was not good. It was just. I told him he had been up there I think for 7 days before I got there. And, he at this point we're 10 days, 11 days into his 14-day window to hunt in September. And I just kind of looked at him and was like, hey, man, we got to, take a deep breath. This is supposed to be fun. This is a once in a lifetime, most likely, tag that you're ever going to draw. Let's, relax. We got food over here. We're going to cook over this campfire, and we're going to just this is supposed to be fun, And if it's not, then what are we doing here?
That's right.
I can be this stressed out at home. I don't have to be out here and stressed out. So, but yeah, that's a.
And as a guide, he's right. Just I remember a guy. This has been fairly recently. that you kind of take them out and prep them where they're going to hunt. And the first thing he did was look at this setup and said, "Well, y'all put that in the wrong tree." And I immediately knew I immediately knew how that week was going to go. And
I've got a similar story.
Guy was, look, I mean, we got along fine, but he wanted to correct everything that we were doing. And as he was seeing deer, his buddy, at that point got a shot opportunity and unfortunately fouled it up. But, that happens too. But, man, go into it with an open mind. I went on an outfitted hunt one year, and I knew how bad it was going to be because of what I paid for it. Guy was, we could have got lucky, but we paid. I'll tell you this. I won't tell you how much we paid, but I ate enough food to cover what I paid. Okay, and it was terrible, absolutely terrible. The only deer that died out of 6 people in camp was one that my buddy and old boss Chris, we kid him that he uglied one to death. He was, when we were hunting in Indiana, and he jumped a spike out of its bed or off the edge of a trail or something, and it fell off of a bluff, a little short bluff, and broke its neck. That's the only deer that died on that trip.
Oh, wow.
And was one of the very, very few deer seen.
I was thinking you were going to say it was hit by a car or something. Like,
No, he uglied it to death. He scared it, and it fell off the little high wall there and died.
Wow.
Let me say something about the price of a hunt that a lot of people seem to overlook. To a lot of folks, price is the primary consideration. Mm-hmm. And they say, well, I can go on let's just say an elk hunt for $3,500. I've got an opportunity to go with this guy, hunt public ground for $3,500. Well, what that tells me, first of all, you're going to be hunting public land.
Yep.
You're probably going to be staying in a wore-out wall tent. You probably don't have the best horses. Good things cost good money. And he's better off, and if it takes him 3 years at $3,500 to ever get a shot at the elk, would he be better off going on a $5,500 hunt on a private ranch where a guy's got good equipment and has a good solid track record? But so many people want to cut corners. I talk to guys all the time that are, call or talk to them that are, looking for a bargain basement price hunt. Well, to me, and I'm a little biased, I admit it, but I think that outfitting industry is one of the few industries that you still kind of get what you pay for. There's some bad apples. There's some bad apples out there, but what industry is there not?
Right.
But fortunately, you don't stay in the outfitting business very long if you continue to not produce animals. People's not going to continue to hunt with you if you're not getting some animals on the ground.
That's true. Yeah, there's attitude will take you a long way in a lot of things, and I think the hunting world is no different, especially, And I think too, like if you've never been on an outfitted hunt before, there's probably a lot of like false information out there. One thing that I really have appreciated about RL is he's very, like he said, I've talked people out of hunts, but like very upfront about the expectation and what your opportunities are when you hunt, you know what I mean? Because a lot of people think, oh man, I'm gonna go up there and they got one tied to a tree for me, and can't wait to get up there and put my hands on it. And like, man, we're talking free range stuff, and especially archery, equipment. That's just not how it works, man. It just isn't.
And if you're a DIY guy, fine.
Have at it, man.
If you don't want to pay, I get it. I do some DIY hunts. I went to Nebraska 2 years ago, and me and a buddy hunted pronghorn with a bow for 16 days and had one shot opportunity. We did that because it's what we wanted to try. And I fell in love with that hunt, and I will likely go back. But we're not saying that outfitting's better. It's just a different hunt.
Yeah. RL is kind of a question I meant to ask earlier, but what would you say is your rough like rebook percentage of guys that have hunted with you in the past? How would you say 50% of them hunt with you? Less than that, more than that, or is that a loaded question?
Well, it's a unique question for me because I have so many of the same guys that hunt with me year in, year out.
Yeah.
So it took a lot of years to get to that point. For the first 10 to 15 years of my outfitting business, I wanted to rebook a roughly 50%. That was my goal. And the reason most outfitters are so hung up on that is they've already made commitments to leases for the next year. And if they don't have the hunters to substantiate it, you're in a world of hurt. Our hunts have almost got, I don't know if Jeremy would agree with this or not, I think he would, but our hunts have almost got to a point, it feels almost like a hunting club.
Yeah, I mean, when you asked him that, I was going to say 95 to 100% of guys that have been in that camp before.
That's right.
Now, we have some new guys sprinkled in, or I say we, RL has some new guys sprinkled in, but I would say that's more a function of now the draw system in Kansas.
Yeah.
Not everybody gets a tag like you used to.
That's right.
So they've got some guys that would love to hunt, have actually paid a deposit down to hunt, but don't draw. Mm-hmm. And you've got guys that's put money down on a deposit just to hope to get in line if somebody doesn't draw, and they actually draw.
Yeah.
So
it's a good position to be in, but I hadn't always been in that position.
Right.
For 9 years, we ran hunts in 5 different states at the same time. Mm-hmm. And that, I've always said that was like, I felt more like a long-distance truck driver than I did an outfitter. I mean, you stayed on the road.
Right.
And we had success. We killed deer.
Oh, yeah.
But it got away from why I started it originally, which was to, enjoy seeing people. I ran into some guys, this is more information than you asked for, and I'm probably getting off your subject here, but I ran into some guys at a hunting show one year. I remember it specifically, and they were talking about hunting with me. I'd never seen these guys. And they said, yeah, we hunted with you. Might have been in Missouri. I can't recall. And I was in another state. And I thought, man, this is just kind of awkward. Mm-hmm. They're my clients, but I don't know them. Mm-hmm. And that's not the sole reason we're just in one state now, but part of the reason. And what I think we've been able to do in Kansas is just since we've got all our eggs in one basket, we're able to concentrate on doing everything that we can and not spreading ourselves quite so thin. Now, don't get me wrong, I'd love to pick up some new ground somewhere else too, but
sure.
But we've got some good ground and going to try to hang on to it.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I think there's value too, and my dad likes to say it all the time, is just staying in your lane. And there's some value in going, this is my niche. This is, I've got history with this piece of ground, and you know what I mean? And we've had success here, that's okay too. You know what I mean?
Let me touch on that. You brought something to my mind as you said that, speaking of a niche. We just hunt the rut.
That's right.
A lot of outfitters are running hunts opening day through the last day. Mm-hmm. And you can do that. And absolutely there's an opportunity to make a little bit more money that way. Mm-hmm. But you can't tell me that your chances of killing a mature buck are just as good, late season as it is early season. There's a niche there. We run rut hunts. We hunt our ground usually 3 to 4 weeks during the peak of the rut. And that covers we hunt a certain way because of that. We're hunting primary travel corridors, funnels, inside corners, that type of thing. And if we had to stretch that out and hunt, of course, if you got late season food sources, that can be dynamite. Mm-hmm. If you're hunting if you're watching those bean fields in the August and you know where they're coming out, that first opening week can be dynamite. Mm-hmm. But other than those 2 times, there's a lot of tough hunting.
That's right.
Those bucks are doing some stupid things during the rut that they don't normally do.
That's right.
And I think it's kind of, with some of my clients, they come up and they're seeing bucks on their feet all time of the day, and they think, man, this Illinois, this Kansas, this Missouri, this Iowa, this is just crazy stuff. Well, it's the rut. That's why it's crazy. 3 weeks ago, it wasn't like this.
No.
They wasn't out in open fields.
Yeah.
That, and it's a lot of open territory.
A lot of
so you can see them.
And I tried to explain that to people down here. Deer are doing the same thing in Alabama they do in the Midwest.
They just do it in the woods.
We have so much more cover.
Visibility,
It's not
lack of visibility.
Visible.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, it's the exact inverse. Down here you have giant tracts of timber and these little strips of ag, and then up there it's giant ag and then these little strips of woods, and that's all they have.
Well, he touched on a few minutes ago, but I agree with him 100%. If you can consistently kill does with your bow in Alabama, you can tackle bucks anywhere else in the country.
Yeah.
And I say Alabama, the Southeast.
Oh yeah, because it's hard. I mean, I've hunted both places, and it's in terms of just I don't really know what to call it. Around here, everybody says they're skittish. They're just whatever. But there is something about deer down here that just have a sixth sense. They know you're there somehow, even though the wind's hitting you in the face and they're directly in front of you. Like they're just more wary. And
last year,
yes,
I shot 5 or 6 does with my bow last year, and every single one of them was not on alert, and I aimed below the hairline to make a good shot on every one of them, meaning that my pin was not even on the deer.
Yep.
And where did I hit them? Right where I wanted to, right where I needed to. Had I aimed middle of the vitals, I'd have either spine shot them or shot over their back altogether.
Yep.
And I've shot several does in the Midwest. They don't do that.
No.
They do not do that.
I wish, y'all all know who Chuck Sykes is. I wish years ago that, and he may have put the footage out, but I wish I could find it again. It's when his new cameraman started with him that was from Illinois, Casey. I say new. My gosh, Casey's been working with Chuck for 20 years, I guess, now, off and on. But Casey was trying to talk him into shooting a deer, and you can kind of hear all this on camera. And he's like, no, I'm not shooting deer that far. No, I'm not shooting. He said, I'm not going to hit it. I know I'm not going to shoot it. And Casey finally talks him into shooting at it. And Chuck's like, all right. And you can put your finger right where the arrow should be, on the deer. And you can hear the bow go off. And you can, slow it down. And you can see the arrow go right there. The deer is no longer even in the frame of the camera. It's gone. Just completely gone. And that's kind of one of those eye-opening moments about how much ground they can cover when they have to.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I videoed 3. I know I've got 3 doe kills on camera from last year. And every single one of them, you can see where they drop so far. And that buck that I killed that you actually aired that video, he not only dipped down, he had time to move forward before the arrow got there.
Oh, yeah, which that was
several inches.
That was a bomb, too. That was
Yeah,
like 46.
46 yards.
And there again, that's another reason you don't need to be taking these 45 and 50-yard shots in the woods. Too many things can happen.
Yeah,
That's right.
Especially here. And deer in the Midwest, they react too, but
slower.
Yeah, it's just they don't seem to be as teed up.
No.
I'll tell you kind of why I think that might be. It's just my philosophy, one of the reasons. I think our deer in Alabama are more like a wilderness deer. You think in the Midwest, because of the visibility, those deer are seeing farmers mending fence, feeding cows, on tractors, on and off tractors. Humans are visible to them throughout their entire life. You get in some of these cutovers in Alabama, unless it's a forester or somebody that's lost, they don't see anybody.
That's right.
All year long. Then all of a sudden deer season comes in and you put people into the equation.
Yep.
I think that we're more like, I think our deer are more like the deer of the upper peninsula in Michigan, the true wilderness deer that when they see human, it's danger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It represents danger. That's my thoughts, my theory.
That makes good sense because you can watch, and look, I am not taking away from anything they're doing, but these guys that are urban bow hunting, those deer don't react the same way. They just don't. They can argue with you or with me if they want to. They
see human activity all the time.
Yeah, and I'm not saying I'm not saying that what they're doing is not hard. It is. Killing these bucks that they're killing is tough, but they don't act the same as a deep woods whitetail.
No,
they do act differently.
for sure. I mean,
especially in a reaction standpoint, from a reaction to a bow shot.
Yep, that's
well,
right.
I mean, not that there's any way for us to ever test this, but like, you know, I would say it's probably the same kind of deal going on if you were able to bow hunt like Lake Guntersville State Park,
Yeah.
where there's deer being fed potato chips and stuff out of their hands and
I
stuff.
can't tell you how they'll react to a bow shot.
Yeah.
That's true. I forgot about that. But you know what I mean? It's kind of the same deal. So, yeah, I forgot about Jeremy's story.
I can tell you how they react to a 38 caliber air rifle.
Yeah.
Gotta
Or a
fan 'em
suppressed
out.
308.
Yeah. Keep in mind, folks, all legal. We were doing research when we were with Game and Fish.
I want to do some research.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Clarification.
Research is
Yeah.
fun until you do it every night, all
Yeah.
night.
Yeah, that's true.
Every now and then, on state lands, a few deer were removed to check for health and all that kind of thing. So don't spam us or kill us with
Yeah.
emails, nor the state.
Yeah.
My gosh, you know, it was being done to promote proper health in populations.
Yeah. State gets enough hate as is. Let's not add to it.
Yep.
RL, that's all the questions that I had for you, but I know that you have a pretty cool project you've been working on for a while with a book that you have written. I was going to give you a chance just to kind of maybe tell our listeners about it and kind of what the sole purpose of writing that book was. And,
Okay.
that kind of stuff.
Well, this is new ground for me. I don't pretend to be a writer, but about 8 years ago, I had written several different articles for different outdoor magazines, and 3 or 4 of the chapters in this book are articles from those. But then about 2 years ago, I got serious about it, and I've written a book called Lessons Learned at Full Draw, and it's coming out mid-August. It's not another how-to book for whitetail hunters. It's basically, as I've had several hundred hunters come through our camps, I've studied the people as much as I have the deer. I make mention in the book that I think the area of hunting that has the room for the most knowledge is of hunters, not the animals. You know, we don't know all there is to know about whitetail, and probably never will, but the hunter's attitude, the hunter's confidence level, the hunter's competency level, all those things come into play. And what I've kind of done in this book is I've got one chapter entitled The Closers, and it's kind of showcases 4 or 5 of our clients. It seems like every time they have an encounter with a trophy buck, they close the deal. And I think it's kind of interesting to see, compare what characteristics these guys had that makes them consistently successful when they come in contact with trophy deer. And so it's kind of the mindset of the trophy whitetail hunter. I explore that in there somewhat. We do have a few tips. I got one chapter entitled Tips and Techniques for Calling Trophy Deer. So I've discussed how we use decoys, how we use rattling. And about a third of the deer that we've taken in recent years have been killed with a call, be it a grunt call, bleat call, snort wheeze, rattling horns, or decoy. And so it's very, very effective. And I also explained why it's not so effective in other places.
Yeah.
Of course, you got buck-doe ratios and all that comes into play. But it got to a point that I just wanted to complete this thing and check it off my list.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a huge seller, I'm sure, but I think the serious bow hunter would enjoy it. I hope they would.
Yeah.
And we're excited to get it out. I've got a few venues that I'm going to be doing some book signings. You're going to be having one here local and a few throughout the state coming up.
That's cool. And,
So how do they get it? If
Well-
people want to know how they get it.
Well, my preference is for me to send it to them or to mail it to them,
Yeah.
because what you make off Amazon's pretty meager.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
They can get it on Amazon. It'll be available on Amazon, but I'm trying to get addresses, and I mail it and do a little better that way.
So if they wanted to reach out to you about it, or if they wanted to buy it, how would they do that?
All they'd have to do is just go to my personal Facebook page or the Trophy Class Outfitter page, and there's a link there that connects it to them and gives them an opportunity to provide me their email address and their physical address.
Okay, cool. That's a good deal. Well, we're excited for that too because it's cool. I remember it's probably been about 2 years ago whenever you first kind of mentioned it to me. It was like, I've got all this experience, and like you said, it's not going to be a how-to. I'm not going to tell you what you should or shouldn't do. I'm just telling you this is stuff that we've done. And
It's what works for us.
It's what worked for us. And I kind of just want to put it all together, and so I think it's kind of a cool mashup of all those years and all those people too, all those different clients too that, have hunted with you in the past too. So it's pretty cool. Matt, Jeremy, you got anything else you want to throw at it?
What are we eating? Dadgummit. It's 12:15.
Matt gets
y'all
ornery.
see what we have to put up with.
I know.
I ate breakfast at 5:30.
That's your fault.
No, it's not my fault. Y'all call me over here on a Friday, dadgummit. Let's go eat.
Well, we know Jeremy's wife. We've already clarified that Jeremy's wife's not going to provide us a meal. Mine's not going to provide us a meal. What are the chances your
She
wife?
provided it last time.
She did last
Oh,
time.
she did.
Yes, she did.
That's right.
This younger generation of women is that's our problem, isn't it?
Nah. Hey, mine is right now babysitting a
Sick calf.
No. Unfortunately, we lost the calf. Just
Ugly dog is sick.
Really
stuff
bring
happens.
down the mood.
Yeah, Ugly Dog had surgery. So,
Murph?
yeah. So everybody that doesn't know, Matt calls my dog Ugly Dog. It's a Aussie Doodle. Mm-hmm. But we don't have kids, so Murphy is definitely my wife's world, and I'm pretty fond of him too. But he had surgery today. He had some, nobody needs to know this, but he had some growths. They weren't cancerous, luckily, but one on his eyelid and one on his foot that had to be taken off just to make sure.
No, thanks.
And the reason we went to that is all of his siblings have died with cancer.
Are you serious?
Every one of them.
Wow.
So we were just making sure.
How old is Ugly Dog now?
8 or 9. 9.
You laugh. I've been calling him Ugly Dog ever since.
He did. Since he was that big, he called him Ugly Dog.
I know. It was just like I feel like he was,
Which is crazy.
complimenting him.
I even called him Ugly Dog to his face.
Yeah.
Ugly Dog.
Which is crazy because he's a beautiful dog. He's a Merle dog.
But he was my introduction to those doodle dogs. Now I've got one.
Yeah.
I've got a mini
And
golden doodle.
y'all are working on a second one, I hear.
No,
too.
we're not. That's not happening.
I thought you were just going to be a breeding operation.
No.
He is.
Yeah, we'll see.
He's already been a breeding operation.
Hey,
Has
careful.
nothing-
He's got
Nothing to do with dogs.
he's got a passel full of kids
4 of them's his.
Yeah.
that they know of.
I got to eat, y'all. Dadgummit, I'm serious.
Okay,
Come on.
gosh, Matt's getting ornery, guys. Listen, we really appreciate you guys listening in. Please, like I said before, please comment, like, share, follow all the things on social. We've got some pretty cool stuff coming here in the next couple months, hopefully, and we're pretty excited about sharing some of that with you as well. So in the meantime, leave us a comment, shoot us a DM if you need anything. Shoot us an email at info@thesouthernnew.com. We'll see you next time.
Now.